the Pete Rickards version.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go, Pete.
Okay. Okay, so let's sit straight and relax. This is something I learned from Kenshin recently. Breathe in all the Buddha's blessings and enlightenment and bodhicitta. And then breathe out all tension and worry. And then breathe in all love and compassion. And breathe out all confusion. And breathe in all refuge. And breathe out all kleshas. Okay, ready to study.
Okay, thank you.
That was nice.
Thank you. I know it's not the same as Michael's. You know?
Adrian said he's running a little late.
No problem. No problem. Okay. Lance, did you leave off where it says when realization arises in your mind?
Yes, that's where we begin tonight.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So I'll start from the top of the page. All experiences are composite. Everything composite is impermanent and will end. Therefore, have no attachment to experience and realize non-dual wisdom. This non-abiding nirvana is solely the province of realization. Mentally fabricated non-duality, which is what great scholars realize, is solely the province of thoughts. The non-duality that arises within is nothing but the blessing of the Guru. The faithful who have veneration for the Guru develop the certainty of realization within themselves. What does someone who just analyzes have? Even I have understood it as words too. When realization arises in your mind, examine to see whether it can withstand negative factors. If someone on your right is swinging an axe at you and saying all kinds of unpleasant things to you, while someone on your left offers you the aroma of sandalwood and respectfully says all kinds of pleasant things to you. If while you're having this experience, you have no happiness or suffering, no like or dislike, without having to take an effort to deal with it, then you've already to perform crazy behavior in public. Now, on that one paragraph, that understand that we should have non-duality, but I just understand it, in a intellectual way. To really understand or grasp it, I'm not anywhere near that level, or probably will I be for a long time. But the end of that sentence is where it says you're ready to perform these crazy behaviors in public. What does that mean? What does that mean to perform crazy behavior in public? To let yourself go completely, to do things without attachments because you've surpassed that, you're beyond that?
I think the siddhas and so forth can actually relax and let themselves go, but at the same time have total self-control without effort, because it's just natural.
Yeah, well, this is the whole thing about crazy wisdom, and of course, it's been a big controversial subject because a lot of teachers who behaved in unorthodox ways, they or their students have used this whole idea of crazy wisdom to justify their behavior. Now, the big question in my mind has always been, how does this kind of behavior benefit their students? Because I would believe that an enlightened person would only act in a way that would benefit others. I mean, that's pretty much the definition of compassion. So, since all this stuff is going on, my feeling is that the students usually need, what's best for a person at our level, at my level at least, is to conform very closely to the precepts. And the best way to do that is to have the teacher as a model to emulate. So I've always been a little skeptical of this crazy behavior kind of thing, because I really don't see that serves as a good model to the students who are around the teacher. And I don't want to say I disrespect other teachers, but I really think it's best if the teacher gives a good model of behavior for their students.
Well,
No.
I think, I think, part of the answer can be just what the point of view of who's seeing this behavior. If it's us, those who have experience with the Dharma and are practicing ourselves and so on, have some insight and so on, and we think about this crazy behavior as something that is at odds with the Dharma, something that a tantric yogi would be performing, doing, smoking dope or running around naked or doing crazy things that they might do. Or is it from the point of view of ordinary people who are seeing someone who is a practitioner, and the practitioner is doing their practices but being, very mindful of the appearances that it makes and so on, and not being contrary to the precepts, but yet the ordinary person just sees this as craziness. Why are they sitting, for half of the morning doing these prayers and so on? They could be out having a lot of fun like we are. So, can it be dependent on those 2 points of view?
I've read in some sutras where bodhisattvas would go into extreme situations where they're drinking, in a house of prostitution to help the prostitutes, to help them realize what they're doing and how to find their way out. And that's those types of situations. Or other sutras where monastics, or some cases where Indra has transformed his body or his form into different forms, as far as a female form or a form of a thief, or to help practitioners realize certain things. Like Bernie said, I'm still a simple, very simple practitioner. So it's not for me. I guess it's not really me for the judge. To say what's good and what's bad. And it's beyond me.
I guess one example is Chogyam Trungpa, who was very wild and so forth. And yet he was able to found a very widespread Dharma activities with Shambhala publications and so forth. And, a lot of good came of it.
Yeah, well, I'm not here to criticize any particular person. I can think of cases, I mean, it's easy to think of cases where a teacher might violate the precepts. For instance, a monk is offered food in the evening, and to turn it down would be to insult their host. And so they decide to eat the food rather than insult the person who's offered it to them. Whereas, strictly speaking, from the point of view of the monk's vows, they're not supposed to eat in the evening. Things like that really don't upset me. I think that's more like general politeness more than anything else. But when we're talking about crazy behavior, I think it depends how crazy it actually is. And how much scandal it might cause if people hear about it.
Well, in the book Crazy Wisdom, there was what by Chungpa Rinpoche, right?
Yeah, okay.
And I mean, he was just talking about the things that we talk about all the time. That this was crazy wisdom relative to people who have no idea what this is. He wasn't giving instructions on how to have sex with every woman that walked into his Dharma center, or what kind of liquor he liked to drink. He wasn't talking about any of that. He was talking about bodhisattva behavior.
Okay, I'm trying to remember what was in that book. I think that book he talked about Padmasambhava in that book. Maybe I'm misremembering.
He may have. It's been a while since I read it, but I remember.
Yeah, I think it was it was a seminar on Padmasambhava, and there's a lot of crazy behavior in Padmasambhava's biography, I think so, or at least some versions of his biography. So
one thing I was reading the other day is that for the siddhas, they're actually not breaking the precepts because they don't have any desire, they don't have any anger, they don't have their actions are only motivated by love and compassion and wisdom.
yeah.
So from their perspective, it's not
sure
going against the precept.
I can see that, but it's difficult for me to see in many cases how their activity really does benefit beings. So,
well, I think read on to the next paragraph.
Definitely.
Hey, let's not get caught up in this.
However, if you have no faith, or if it's unstable, if you haven't gained unimpeded powers, and you publicly carry out the secretly taught conducts, you will bring yourself and others to ruin. When you have gained unimpeded powers, such as various kinds of clairvoyance, some of which may possibly be of benefit to others, don't distinguish between secret and public conduct. So they talk about stable faith and certain secret conducts. If carried on at, I guess if you're not at that level, then you can bring others and yourself to ruins. Because I remember one story of a monk going into a cave, and there was a woman meditating in that cave, and it was raining. And after the rain stopped, the woman and the monk came out of the cave. Certain people saw that and made a mental formation or a mental thought, say, wow, never thought a monk and a woman would be coming out of a cave and thinking all these thoughts that were impure. And through the clairvoyance of the monk, he saw the thoughts of the people and gave a lecture or a teaching that you should never judge anything just from seeing one side of it. You should always be knowing that both sides should be looked upon. And after he did that, he went straight up into the sky. So someone that was impure could not possibly do something like that. I guess that's one of the 10 powers of the Buddha. And talks of various kinds of clairvoyances. So does anybody have anything on clairvoyance? Do you think it's possible?
Oh, I think the advanced teachers definitely have clairvoyance, and I mean, I've been in more than, I can't remember any specific examples, but sometimes teachers answer questions that people are thinking, but they don't actually say out loud. And I've heard people say, "Oh, I was thinking of that question, and he answered the question I was thinking of." So that sort of thing I've heard, and I've heard of in different seminars.
So yeah, I mean, I certainly believe in it. Um, I've seen or felt some of that as well, where they look into you. I mean, look like, it seems like you're being looked right into your heart essence. They can see your level of devotion and faith, and they can, give you a teaching that's, that will help you. I guess, and that's the what a real guru does have. That's that ability. Right.
Yeah, well, they have this line about don't distinguish between secret and public conduct. I imagine what they mean here by secret conduct is practice involving a consort, but that's just an assumption on my part. So that's the
think it
sort of
just
thing
means
that might
be-
bring scandal.
I think it just means be yourself, be your
Maybe.
true self.
That might be, you might be right.
And in the true self, one has the wisdom of discriminating awareness, and one can practice discriminating awareness and know what to do and what not to do in a given circumstance. So it doesn't mean that they just throw all wisdom out the window and they can do whatever they want. It's not nihilism, but they're practicing perfection. They're living a perfect life, taking into consideration the appearances that it has with other people as well.
Okay. The Venerable Milla taught that the 10 virtuous actions are not to be performed, that the 10 bad actions are not to be abandoned, and that you should rest in natural relaxation. The Venerable Loro taught that the powerful high 3 jewels are completely present in a state of devotionless knowing, in which there is nothing that can be called going for refuge.
Loro is Rechungpa, by the way, the heart son of Milarepa.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And he was not considered to be a very good yogi. Now, Bernie and Pete might have more to say about that, but he was a little bit askew of what Milarepa would have wanted him to be. Is that right?
Well, I remember some stories about, well, of course, history is always written by the victors, and the story of the Kagyu was written by the students of Gampopa rather than the students of Rinpoche, because they had so much more. There's stories, lots of stories about Rinpoche and the Blue Annals, I think is the title of it. It's History of Tibet, and one of them is he got married to a Tibetan noble lady, and he said it brought him more suffering than anything else he'd done. So it was his. So yeah, and Yeah, and so there are a couple of stories in the Blue Annals. Another story is he went to a monastery to beg for food, and because he wasn't a monk, and he was a yogi instead, the person in charge of the kitchen shut the door on him, and he sang a verse which made the monk who shut the door on him, cry because it was true. He was telling him the truth, and he said, "Oh no, it's because I got smoke in my eyes from the fire in the kitchen." Those are the only two stories I remember about Rinpoche right now. So
Did the Rinpoche lineage continue?
yes, it did, but it merged back into the Gampopa lineage. It didn't remain as a separate lineage for long. So I think there are. Well, somebody's more knowledgeable about Drikung than I am. I think there are certain teachings in the Drikung that come from Rinpoche, but I can't remember anything specifically.
Who is Gampopa is the disciple considered the son of Milarepa, S-U-N. Who's the moon disciple? Is that Rinpoche?
That would be the two greatest disciples of Milarepa were Gampopa and Rinpoche.
Gampopa was the Dharma son, and Rinpoche was the heart son. That's the way I've seen it expressed.
Mm-hmm.
I was just reading something, and it was in Jewel Ornament, and it kept talking about, it said sun and moon, and I'm wondering who the moon is then.
That would be Rinpoche probably.
So when Milarepa and said the 10 virtuous actions are not to be performed, and that the 10 bad actions are not to be abandoned.
I take that as natural beyond judgment or prejudice.
Yeah, I think it just means acting spontaneously out of your heart rather than through calculation.
I take it as like sitting in meditation, like in a cave or something, and you're not actually performing the 10 virtues, and you're not abandoning the 10 bad actions, but I don't think he means do the 10 bad actions.
I think being in a state of Mahamudra where it's all on the path, it's all the same, it's all been, to use the word, neutralized.
So you do whatever needs to be done at the time that it needs to be done.
And nothing more, nothing less.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
These viewpoints of those venerable ones are as clear as a butter lamp in a vase. To me, the beggar monk from Shang, and to all my realized Vajra siblings.
So what does that mean? Is that a glass vase or is that an opaque pottery vase?
Well, you've seen butter lamps in the shrine. They're generally made of metal. I guess that's what they're talking about. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm just thinking they're talking about a normal butter lamp here, which is, a metal lamp with a butter in the middle and a wick. But that's what I was assuming.
Well, a vase implies something like this to me, a bumper.
Sure.
Is a
Sure.
vase which is made of metal and is opaque.
Right.
Or could be pottery. So I made a note about this paragraph myself because I wondered about that. Is it clear or is it opaque?
It says here are as clear as a butter lamp, so I imagine it says it's clear here.
Well, but is that not, turning it around and saying you can't see the wisdom, you can't see the light because it's in this opaque vase?
It
Well, I
says,
think there's a clue because it says it's as clear as a butter lamp to all my realized Vajra siblings. So maybe he's saying we understand it. And then of course, the next paragraph says, but if I explain it, you'll find it hard to understand. It's experienced only by those to whom it has spontaneously arisen. So I think he's setting it up as an expression of clarity. but I agree with you. The vase is, it didn't say glass, didn't say glass, didn't say it was glass.
I mean, back, 1,000 years ago, were they manufacturing glass vases?
No, I don't think there's no any glass. There's only pottery.
I know they had glass vases and glass objects in Rome, so I don't
Oh,
know.
did they? Oh, then.
Pretty sure they did. It wasn't just
Okay.
pottery. But you're right, they wouldn't have a lot of glass. Glass was very expensive to make back then, but
I think another clue is he's writing I think he's writing as somebody who's explaining it clearly. And then he's saying, but I can't explain this to you. So I think there's a certain stance he's taking of, I get it. And it won't be clear to others. So that to me says that it would point back to the butter lamp, being something that is clear in a vase. But otherwise, you have to read everything as nobody gets this except, and I can explain it, but I'm not going to try, and I don't get it either. And that's kind of contradictory.
yeah.
How
It's
can he
kinda like-
explain it if he doesn't understand it? If it's beyond him, how can he explain it? But he clearly says, I can explain it, but I'm not going to.
Well, it's kind of like Pete, when he used the analogy of, trying to explain the taste of sugar. You can try to explain it, but unless you've tasted it, there's just no possible way you're gonna know what it tastes like. So it's just, why even bother trying to explain it?
He seems to know what the taste of sugar is, though, by the way he's writing.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If
Well,
you knew what it
John,
tastes
yeah,
like,
yeah.
know?
He seems to.
I think it's a juxtaposition of the obvious.
Hmm.
And I think that for those who have on the path and have awakened to Mahamudra, then whether the lamp itself is in a solid vase, opaque, or in a clear vase, the clarity of the wisdom is the same. He's not making any dualistic distinctions. He's actually speaking at it from a point that is beyond dualism.
If it's like a clay pot type vase and the butter lamp's in it, from the point of view of within the clay pot, it's all very visible and bright. But outside of that, you can't see it, but it's there.
But if I explain it, you will find it hard to understand, for it's experienced only by those in whom it has spontaneously arisen, by those who have faith, by those who have pleased their gurus, and those blessings has entered into their hearts.
So these are beings who are on the path. And the opacity of a clay pot doesn't mean anything.
Mm-mm. A lot of these phrases where it ends with pleasing their gurus. So is it? I know I read in a lot of places where Mahamudra cannot be experienced unless with the love of the guru. Love from the guru and then love of the guru. So obviously there's a lot of devotion and faith towards the teacher. So is it not possible to attain Mahamudra without that devotion to the teacher?
All the teachings I've seen Thomas say that you've got to have that. The teacher has the hook of compassion, and the student has the ring of, or the teacher has the ring of compassion, and the student has the hook of faith. it might be reversed, but it's like there has to be that devotion to the guru and as well as the guru's blessings.
Yeah, this is kind of speculative. I think it's possible to have realization of Mahamudra without devotion to the guru, but I think it's much, much harder. That it's the smooth and the easy path to go through devotion to the guru, but I can't say that it's impossible without it.
See, and I always look at it that this is talking about the inner guru.
Okay.
The Mahamudra is not possible until we go through the fivefold path of Mahamudra, which after the deity yoga, then comes the guru yoga of the four kayas. And are we talking about the Vajra master who's sitting on the throne, or are we talking about the guru within ourselves and realizing the four kayas within ourselves?
Well, as far as that goes, I think you need devotion to the outer guru to find the inner guru.
Well, that may be true. That's true. Yes. But I think that the essence of what this is, though, is finding the inner guru.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's-
ultimately. Sure.
So when a yogi goes up into a cave and meditates for 10, 15, 20 years, it's just by himself, and comes to a certain realization, I guess he has developed or seen his inner guru and realized it. Because
That could be a Pratyeka Buddha.
Yeah, I think
We could say that's why he was in the cave for 20 years, because he hadn't found it yet.
yeah. Well, maybe it's like kids when they grow up, when they're teenagers, they're very rebellious. But then when the older they get, the more they respect their parents because they realize what their parents have done. So somebody who goes into retreat develops devotion more and more they are in retreat because they realize the truth of what their teacher previously told them. Just a guess, but
it's like saying all old people are wise. A lot of old foolish people. And I know a lot of wise young people as well.
yeah, but I do think you appreciate what your parents did when you become a parent yourself. So
Oh, that's
true.
always,
So,
hold on.
Well, I got a question for you, erudite guys who've read a lot of biographies and so on. Have you ever seen it expressed where a teacher, a guru, tells their disciple, I want you to go into the cave. I want you to go into the hermitage. I want you to go into retreat and stay there for 15 years or 20 years or 30 years? Or does the guru say to the disciple, I want you to go into the cave or the retreat and don't come out until you're enlightened?
I don't know. I don't. You hear of people like Tilopa and such going into retreat and chaining themselves up. I really don't know what kind of instructions you get when you go into solitary retreat like that from your teacher. And I can't remember from any biographies that I've read the specific instructions. Maybe Pete does.
No, I don't. But I know that Milarepa, when he was in the mountains after Marpa had passed away, he still had great faith and longing for his guru, and he prayed to him. And I think Marpa would appear to him when he prayed.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I think from everything I've ever heard lamas teach, it's essential to have that guru devotion to realize Mahamudra. Otherwise, maybe like a Pratyeka Buddha, someone like a realization of a Pratyeka Buddha doesn't have that guru's blessing. Yeah.
But let me ask you this question then. Doesn't this become what's the right word for it? A self-fulfilling hierarchy that is creating an institution and it continues to support the institution rather than having the institution be a mechanism by which one can liberate oneself. You understand the point?
Yeah, you're saying, well, this is a sort of the Krishnamurti point. You can't depend on anybody else. You got to figure it out for yourself. Well, in Buddhism, they always talk about different lineages. They talk about the lineage of the precepts, the lineage of the lineage of the vows, the lineage of the teachings, and the lineage of the blessings. So the idea of the teaching being passed from one person to another is not just there once, it's there in triplicate. So the lineage is always considered very important in Buddhism. And I always say, if you ever want to know if a teacher is genuine or not, ask the person who their teacher was. And if they kind of hem and haw and won't tell you who their teacher is, they're probably not genuine. So
Wasn't Shakyamuni Buddha? Who was his guru?
he did have two.
Bingo.
He did have two
Bingo.
gurus. He did have two gurus.
I mean, but
Achieved
when
enlightenment, but he talks in the Pali scriptures about the two teachers that he learned meditation from. I forget what their names are, right? They're not on the tip of my tongues, but he did have teachers. You can't say that he just went out into the woods and started meditating on his own. He only left his teachers after he learned everything he could from them.
Yeah, because he figured that there's nothing more to be offered by those teachers. But he was looking for more. He was striving for more.
I mean, obviously, any teacher can only take you so far. Ultimately, you have to have the realization for yourself.
Well, from the Mahayana perspective, Shakyamuni was already enlightened when he arrived on Earth. From the early Buddhism perspective, he was an ordinary person, an ordinary man who became awakened. But from the Mahayana perspective, he was fully enlightened already.
Certainly.
And just manifesting what needs to be done to attain enlightenment.
Well, that goes to the modern point. That's something that, somebody like my buddy Ken Wilber always says, we're already enlightened. We just don't recognize it.
That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah. But no, I don't think having a teacher is in any way is going to hold you back. I think it's important to have a teacher and to have respect for them. That's all through not just Mahamudra, that's through all the Buddhist teachings. But then again, just having a teacher is not enough. You've got to put a lot of effort into practice for yourself to make what the teacher told you your personal experience.
Is the teacher part of the psychophysical drama of being a human being?
Well, it's certainly a very common human relationship. I don't know what there is beyond that, what you mean by psychophysical drama.
Well, psycho, mental, intellectual,
Sure.
And the physical, being able to see, hear, touch, and feel and all that, and isn't that part of that particular play of drama that we are liberating from, that we're trying to liberate from?
Well, of course, at certain points, you don't need a teacher anymore, but
yes, and that's what I'm trying to get to.
I mean, that's like saying when you get to Bogota, you don't need the airplane anymore. You're there. But,
that's right.
But you're not going to get there by walking. So you need the plane.
But isn't a good teacher the one he or she helps you recognize your true nature? They help you get on that path and stay on that path and keep doing what you need to do. That keeps motivating you. That keeps, if you're feeling it, that they recognize or see that you're going off the path, to put you back on that path.
By whatever degree we need that teacher, yes.
Sure. And at our level, I think that's a very profound thing, And it's like even the Dharma, can be hindering us to become completely realized. And once we've gotten what we need out of it, we let that raft go and let somebody else use it to cross that river. Because we're not gonna put that raft on our back and carry it with us because we're so thankful for it.
Excuse me, I gotta get up. I gotta get a book. There was something I just read about that.
How about you, Adrian? What do you think?
He's been quiet tonight. He's been quiet tonight.
Nothing. I'm just sipping from my cup tonight.
Yeah. And Curtis?
Well, over and over again, we're told to respect and value our teachers, that they're precious. And even when we, and it doesn't say, oh, and you stop doing that once you're enlightened. You still show respect for your teachers. And that's important behavior to be modeled for society, for people that, it's good for people to see modeling of respect for superiors and morally and spiritually. It's all good values. It's, I see when I see Garchen Rinpoche teaching and things, that some of it's very dualistic. He's calling, he's saying the prayers and stuff, and so he doesn't stop doing that stuff just because he might be completely in the non-dual. It doesn't get extinguished. The other thing is, the whole idea of master and disciples in the West as a category. I've said this before. In the West, at least in the Western European countries where Christianity is dominant, you just don't have that guru disciple thing. It's sort of Jesus had disciples and nobody else has disciples unless you maybe talk about St. Francis having disciples. But as a category of the kind of teacher that's a spiritual master and disciples, it isn't, part of the culture the way it is in the East. Of course, in the East, sometimes, your guru can be a grandfather figure and he's not necessarily a highly enlightened person. Gurus can run the gamut from grandfatherly types to, avatars. But I guess I'm just the sum of this is I don't think we respect teachers enough in the West. We've gotten so we think for ourselves to a fault and don't have respect for tradition and wisdom. Have some, that's not as implicit as it is in some of the Eastern cultures, to be respectful of the wisdom of the tradition. People are too busy thinking, we left all the tradition behind. We create our own right way of thinking. And there's a lot of people that are very lost because they don't have good teachers.
Great. Okay. I am not going to describe the all victorious conduct, the great meditation conduct, or any of the others, as I think that it would take too long. Since you could read about them within the ocean of supreme tantras, I don't have to write too much here. Perform the appropriate conduct at the appropriate time. Avoid senseless behavior and empty chatter. Practice without being too tight or too loose. Maintain a view that is free of partiality. Have a conduct that is free of artifice. Have compassion that is without bias. Meditate free from distraction. Then there will be unceasing good qualities, an accomplishment of unending benefit for beings. That's very very to the point of that whole paragraph.
And the next lines contrast it and make the point by pointing out the opposite.
Mhm.
Okay, so what's the view that is free of partiality? That means you're not a partisan of any one philosophical school or what? What do people think?
I think he means towards
Partial.
sentient beings, Bernie.
Free partiality towards sentient beings then.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Equal compassion and wisdom and love for all.
okay.
See all as one or as equals.
I was thinking of intellectual view in that sentence, but
It certainly implies not being attached to view somewhat. You're partial to things you're attached to. I'm partial
What
to
does
Bernie.
artifice mean? Do you know what artifice means?
Fake,
Materialism.
Huh?
it's artifice is kind of superficiality, fake superficiality.
Trickery.
Trick.
I think it means behaving one way in public and another way in private.
If you look it up, one of the definitions is trickery.
Trickery, right?
Allowing yourself to get tricked into something, or allowing someone to trick you, allowing a philosophy to trick you. You know, to
If-
be non-conceptual is so, is so powerful. Everything as soon as you start thinking, you're thinking in dualistic terms. You're
Right.
thinking, and you can't help it. It's what being a human being is.
Yeah,
To
that's
be able
why
to
they.
get to that point that is beyond that
Right.
means we got to get beyond, that conceptuality, all this, as soon as we are say something, we're tricking ourselves.
Right, that's true.
That's how profound all this is. That's how profound Mahamudra is.
That's the
Certainly.
thing with Buddhism. Unless you practice it day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out, and bring it to real life for your everyday life, to think it, to be it, to live with it, to live within it. It's just words. It's a wonderful class to take. It makes you feel good after the class. But you have to be conscious of everything that you read, everything that you do, and apply it every day. That's the hard part, to applying it. We can read it, we can talk about it, we can chit chat about it, get up and completely forget about it. The next time get together again, start talking about it again. But it's so much more important to practice it. That's the hard part. Unless you entrench yourself in it, you're just learning about Buddhism, not practicing it.
Do you want to continue being a human being?
What's the alternative?
Non-conceptuality.
Well, you can be a non-conceptual human being.
You think so?
Well, yeah. Well, this is the fine point of what emptiness is. When they talk about conceptuality, they mean people aren't trapped by conceptuality. You still have to use it, but you aren't used by it.
So it's a conditional thing.
It's
relative. It's relative.
yeah,
It's relative all by itself.
Yeah. So the example, what was in one book, said that a guy from China said, he wanted to buy something, and this is in the old days when only the drugstores were open on Sundays. You remember that? And he didn't realize he could go to a drugstore to buy what he wanted because he thought the only thing that was available in the drugstore was drugs. So he was trapped by the name of drugstore. You know, he didn't realize that it's more than what the name implied. And he says in that way, we're always trapped by the language that we use, you know. And we use the language, but we shouldn't be used by the language that we use. And a lot of times people are trapped by their words and they can't get around them.
Does anybody think that, you know, that the three dimensions in which we function, and do you think there's a fourth dimension, fifth dimension, sixth dimension? Do you think there's other dimensions? And but all that we can recognize as human beings are these three dimensions.
That's
And you could argue about the fourth, you know, as being time or.
yeah.
But what do you think about that question?
That's a tricky question. What you're basically asking is whether mathematics is real or not, and I don't know. Because the higher dimensions exist in mathematics, but whether they exist in reality, I have absolutely no idea.
I think
I think
Buddhism.
there's a lot of different dimensions in the world system, but like when you hear about Nagas and so forth, you know, we don't usually see Nagas, but they're, you know, these yogis see the Nagas and say they're there. So it's like another dimension.
Well, I think Buddhism opens those gates. Completely opens those gates. Because for every practitioner, every true practitioners, there's yaksas, I think, or nagas that follow. 2 or 3 of them that follow you everywhere you go. They protect you. You don't see them, but they're there.
Nice thought.
Oh, well, that's the thing, you know. You can read it and just say, okay, well, that's interesting, you know, but
That's why I got my tattoo. I got my dragon tattoos.
there you go. Hey, yeah,
Or keep the Nagas happy.
exactly. You know,
That's good.
Bernie,
The,
that means that you believe in another dimension.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you first said in that sentence. Adrian?
I was talking with Bernie. I said he believes then that there is
Oh, I believe there's all sorts of things out there, but I would hate to have to meet them in person. You
Yeah.
heard the story. Here's another story. You probably heard it, or Thomas has probably heard it. There was a Japanese man who was fascinated with dragons. So his house was filled with paintings of dragons and all sorts of sculptures of dragons. And one day the king of the dragons heard that and he was very pleased. And he decided to pay this man a visit. And when the man actually saw the dragon, he fainted dead away.
I got you. Okay, can we go a little bit down the rabbit hole now? Speaking of different dimensions. So Bernie just said that he is afraid to meet them. Okay, so I had a dream.
Okay.
I had a dream. No, I've been having this dream since I was probably in middle school. And it's always like that, the same. So it's just like me walking down the street of completely deserted town. It's dark. And there is a street light at this intersection. And the street going to the left is a dead end. Very narrow street between 2 buildings. Very dark. I walk down the street, look to the left, down that street, and at the end of it, there is a car. Dead car has been sitting there for years. You can tell because there's like dirty windows, dirty car. And as I stare towards the car, I look intensely through the windshield, and 2 eyes suddenly open. It looks straight at me. Red fire, red, looking straight towards me. And I wake up.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And
Was that the
I,
dead end street or the other street? I missed that.
that is the dead end street.
That's the dead end
left.
street.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a light pole. There's a light pole right here to my right. And then I look to the left, dead end street, car at the end of the street. And there's that something looking at me, terrifying,
So
right?
you never got to the right side of, didn't make the right turn then. It was only the
Maybe,
left.
maybe supposed to meet that creature in the,
Well, here's the thing. So year after years, right? After I've been having that dream, came to the United States, met my good friend, starting yoga, starting meditation, starting all this. And I'm telling him about my dream. And he's telling me that that person. He's telling me that I know that person. It's your protector. You just don't know it. Oh, I forgot to say. So red, bright eyes. And I also knew is a vampire.
a vampire. Wow.
I also knew is a vampire. Okay, now, you all know I'm coming from Romania and all that, but it's not, he was not my cousin. I just, I
Well,
knew that thing was, a blood drinker. But once he told me that, I knew that I was kind of like liberated. I was not afraid of it anymore.
okay, that's good.
I didn't have that dream anymore since.
So what, in Tibetan Buddhism, it's the Harukas who are
The
the
Harukas, the blood drinkers.
Yeah, Vajrayogini.
Of course, Vajrayogini, of course, with
Is the
sculpted
consort to the
blood.
Harukas.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe you have a protector there of your shoulder, and yeah.
Yeah, if you're a true just practitioner, you always have these protectors around you.
Dharma protectors near you. Sure.
You look at the perspective of Milarepa, he said that the phenomenal world around us is like a rainbow. He would just fly to the top of a mountain or swim in the ground or walk through a wall, or, our idea of dimensions is based, it's like we're in a dream and we're like just seeing things in the dream and thinking, is there anything outside of this dream? But like when you have a dream and you wake up, there's a lot of other stuff.
And this life of ours right now is a dream, so we need to wake up.
Yeah.
I hope I don't have any dreams of blood-eyed, bright red-eyed people tonight. Like Adrian. And I'm going to have all sorts of nasty dreams tonight, I'm sure.
It's a good thing, Bernie. It's a good thing.
I'm sure it's a good
It's a
thing. It's
good
very
thing.
cleansing and liberating, but probably not very pleasant when you have them.
Well, that's what it says in the book. Maintain a view that is free of partiality.
Yeah,
Somehow,
I guess.
I'm taking that, to where it's attachment and aversion. You're attached to beautiful creatures that look pleasant to you, and like you considering that a good dream. But what if your protectors are actually wrathful
Yeah.
looking?
Sure.
I think we ought to read on and finish this section. It's important.
I think, yes, I agree. I think we ought to read the entirety of what's left
I agree.
without interruption, because they kind of all work together.
If without the realization of non-duality, you can be liberated by deliberately senseless behavior regarding enemies and friends and golden cloths of earth, that's the same, and having no regard for respectability or reputation, then why don't little children become liberated? If without the realization of non-duality, you can be liberated by disregard for what is proper, then every lunatic would be liberated. If without the realization of non-duality, you can be liberated by disregard for cleanliness, then every dog and pig would be liberated. If without the realization of non-duality, you can be liberated by skillful conduct, then every new bride would be liberated. If you can be liberated, if you could be liberated by a natural relaxation that lacks the realization of non-duality, then every idiot would be liberated. If you do not have the realization of non-duality, then however you act, whether wild or precise, you will be liberated. If you do not have the realization of non-duality, whether your conduct is precise or wild, you will be in bondage. If you are permeated by impartial compassion, whatever you do will be the supreme path. If you are not permeated by impartial compassion, whatever you do will be the inferior path.
That whole thing is a meditation all by itself.
Mhm.
So much for crazy behavior if it isn't coming from the right place.
But that's the thing, what is the right place?
Non-duality,
Non-duality.
obviously.
Exactly, and that's hard for us to even conceptualize. There we go, that word again.
Impossible
concept,
to conceptualize.
You know,
And this is, remember, this is the whole section on conduct. So this is the end of this long section on conduct. And the contrast, he wants to draw is between around righteous conduct and anything that's false and not really good. It can be crazy behavior, but if it isn't coming from non-duality, no.
yeah, from if you're a realized one, then yes. There is no right or wrong conduct, but we're certainly not at that level. So everything we do does matter. What we say, how we act.
It's almost like this
think.
addresses, go ahead, Tom.
Go ahead.
It's almost like this addresses anyone, doing anybody, catching these teachings in Tibet, or it's really addressing anyone that takes permission from the masters, any master's crazy behavior to act that way. It's kind of saying, don't think about it. You need to understand that, that if the master takes liberties and you think it's crazy behavior, don't think it's for you. We're going to talk about it real clearly here at the end of this conduct section. Don't make that mistake. Because I think people do take permission. That's the danger of not setting a good example. People say, oh, well, my guru did it, I can do it too. People do that. It isn't honest, it isn't moral, it isn't thinking clearly, but some people take permission from what the teacher does, not seeing where it really comes from.
If you just read Trungpa Rinpoche and not know anything about his behavior and personality, we say, my goodness, what a wise person this is.
Well, he was a wise person.
Yeah, well, I'm making the point, that you don't know anything about what his lifestyle was. But if you know about his lifestyle, and then you say, oh, well, I can do these things too, and have this same kind of mindset as Trungpa Rinpoche, and is false. And somebody pointed out to me, I think about this every now and again when Trungpa Rinpoche comes up, but Trungpa Rinpoche embodied everything that was counter to Dharma.
Plenty of it.
That he wrote about it, he's taught about Dharma in its purest sense, but he behaved counter to that as a means for people to recognize what it is that they're tricking themselves, that they're fooling themselves. And he died an early death. And he was sick and he had a terrible accident when he was a young man. And he said, yeah, keep on living like I do, and you're going to wind up suffering like I've had to suffer. He doesn't say it that way, but it's there for people to do. When he died, now I don't know this, but when he died, people started emulating him and getting all kinds of confused, getting all kinds of trapped because they were trying to live like that and realize, wow, this is craziness. But there's no, but it's not a craziness that leads to any kind of an enlightenment.
A bunch of, so I forget the exact particulars, but I know some of the monks that came out were having sex, you know, without safety measures, and people died of AIDS.
That
And his
was
son
this
is,
dude, Thomas Rich.
yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I better not do. And now his son has been, you know, reaccepted by Shambhala, and Pema Chodron has said, it's too much for me. I don't want to be part of Shambhala. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, you know, when you start excusing bad behavior by the guru, because, oh, it's just crazy behavior, or we you know, we're going to, you know, that's what happens in cults. And that is really, really, that's just nuts.
His motivation may have been compassion for others to say, I'm living this life so you can see what it is and not live this life. We can give him credit for doing that.
I think the point is that most 99% of the time, you don't need to judge or criticize anyone. And you never know what's going on in another person's heart, whether they're a guru or just an ordinary person. And we should just try to treat everyone who we meet with kindness and compassion. And we shouldn't judge or criticize other people unless it's strictly necessary. So I don't think that just applies to the guru. I think that applies to everybody that we know. So,
But like with what Curtis was saying, Bernie, not to like as us as ordinary people, not to emulate that. And as Lance was saying, not for us to emulate that behavior, thinking that
Right.
we're practicing Dharma by doing
Sure,
that.
sure. Well, we all call ourselves Buddhists, and we should all emulate the conduct of the Buddha. So he should be our guidepost rather than, we don't call ourselves Guru X-ists. We call ourselves Buddhists. So we should emulate the conduct of the Buddha and not the conduct of anybody else.
In terms of the Buddhist hierarchy, if you want to call it that, or the plethora of the different Buddhas and so on, that Trungpa Rinpoche is regarded as a Vidyadhara. Have you
Yeah.
heard that? Have you seen that? Read that?
He was.
All right. So in the Bardo Todal, the Vidyadhara are explained as the hero awareness holders. The hero awareness holders that are at the throat chakra,
Okay.
and what their function is to reveal habitual tendencies.
Oh,
In the heart
Big-
chakra, it overcomes the afflictive emotions. In the head chakra, this is where the peaceful deities are in the heart. In the skull is mental
wrathful.
misconceptions. This is where the Haruka class of deities are,
Right.
the wrathful deities are. And this was the Vidyadhara, the hero awareness holders.
so since they're in the throat chakra, they will be connected with speech then rather.
Well,
than
speech and
body.
intellectualization.
Speech and
Yeah.
intellectualization. So yeah, I don't know anything.
So
I
what
know.
does it, what
I
does it
do
mean
know
to
that he
say,
used the title Vidyadhara, or his students used that for him. So
yeah, what does
Well,
that mean to say that applies to him? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I've seen it applied many times in his writings. Not I don't know if he called himself a Vidyadhara, but he's been referred to many times as a Vidyadhara.
So what does it mean to say that? I'm not sure I understand what it means.
That he was a Vidyadhara. He was a
No, but what does that mean?
a hero awareness holder.
So what does that mean in terms of behavior and conduct? How does that,
That the
Mesh with
the hero awareness holder, we are acting all the time. We are doing things and we're giving ourselves away as to who we are, to what purity we have attained, or to what impurity we have attained or we maintain. So when we joke around, when I joke around and say stupid things for a laugh, I'm revealing something within myself, which is my imperfection, my impurity. Because we would think anyway that a pure Buddha wouldn't do that. I might make a joke that uses somebody as an example, and I'm making a joke, and I think it's innocent, but meanwhile, it's hurtful. So I'm giving away my imperfection. On the other hand, if I just sit and I'm quiet in meditation all the time, I'm giving myself away there too. Which hero would you rather have?
I don't know. I'm sure he had an important part, Trungpa Rinpoche. We're always harping on Trungpa Rinpoche, but there's certainly a lot of teachers that came here to the West. Yeah, I think he had an important part in bringing Buddhism to America, and I'm not trying to denigrate that at all.
Not at all.
Whether the particular organization that he founded is going to continue, I have no idea.
But this is, the whole point of all this, the Bardo Todal, the Mahamudra, is to develop critical thinking about this. Critical thinking is critical contemplation, which yields into meditation, Mahamudra meditation, the mind that is beyond all this conceptualization.
It's also the perfection of moral ethics, one of the paramitas.
Yeah, well, yeah, the critical thinking comes in distinguishing between what's real and what's just our imagination, and seeing and seeing that many of the things that we take for being real are just products of our own thoughts.
That's right. Seeing that our mind is just a manufacturer of all this stuff.
We're manufacturing a lot of falsities all the time, false opinions, false beliefs, and all that all the time.
So to get beyond that, to get transcendent.
Yeah, that's where the sort of Manjushri comes in, to cut through all that false thinking.
So you're talking about Prajna, Lance?
Of course. So to use being a human being gives us the ability to experience all this stuff and then cook it. We cook it in the Kapala, the skull cup.
The five meats and the five
meats. Yeah, we cook it all together. And we drink it.
As Amrita.
As Amrita. The experience of being a human being is the gateway to being a Buddha. The Buddha is a gateway. The Buddha is the ideal of a human being.
Yeah.
I thought for some reason, I might be wrong, but the blood and the skull cup is burning the impurities, right?
Yes.
Afflictive emotion.
It's the elixir of those afflictive emotions. It's cooking all those disgusting things into this delicious meal that we have.
Yeah. Has anybody ever explained why it's blood rather than anything else? Blood representing life or something, like the life force or something?
Well,
like
it's
that?
considered very impure to Brahmins,
Well,
and the charnel ground deities would be drinking blood.
so
Is that also like considered menstrual blood? Maybe.
Sure. Yeah, feces, menstrual blood. Yeah. And the I keep on saying this, the chakra samvara practice brings us all to our awareness. That's why the chakra samvara practice is so important to the fivefold path of Mahamudra in the Drikonkagyu tradition. In other traditions, I think correct me if I'm wrong, in the Galupa tradition, I think it's Kalachakra is the deity.
I don't know. I really don't know. I think
And
they practice. What is it?
And I think in Karma,
Yamataka.
what was that again?
They practice Yamantaka a lot in the Galupa tradition. So,
Well, I'm not sure without, going back to notes and looking it up, but
yeah.
I'm just making a point. And Kalachakra or Yamantaka have all these different deities, have this great elaborate mandala explained, brought to our awareness so that we can digest it, so we can see it. So it goes into that crucible of the skull cup, cook it, and then we see that that's our nutrition. That's what transforms us. We see it all as the elixir of life.
So is that perception? If we see something, if we're a blind man or a blind woman and get a drink and we're thirsty, take a nice drink of water out of a skull cup, not realizing it's a skull cup and it's full of maggots and all kinds of things that that we don't recognize or that we deem disgusting. But if we drink this and it quenches our thirst, and then we open our eyes and we see what it really is.
Well, at this point, it's become pure at this point.
But that's the thing, but what makes it pure is our perception, right?
Perspective, yeah.
Of how we see it.
Our transcendence.
Because when that moment where we had our eyes closed, it was the greatest tasting water that we've ever had. Because we were so thirsty. But when we opened our eyes, saw what really was, or what we think it would, what we perceive it to be, we were completely disgusted by it. So we have to let that go. That's the hard part, letting that go, because we're so dualistic.
So conceptually, it's very hard for us to do that. Like you just said, we just can't intellectualize that away, but we can practice it away. We can experience that, bringing it all to bear onto the path, and then having it dissolve all by itself into the space. And that's why the deity yoga practice gives us that method to be able to experience that.
That's why the teachers always say, practice, practice, It says, avoid senseless behavior and empty chatter. It's easy. There's so much senseless stuff that consumes us. All around us, all the time. But try to fill your surroundings and everything you do with Dharma practice or something that's wholesome. Yeah, I have a long ways to go. I don't know how many more thousands of lifetimes I have.
Well, you and everyone here, as well as everybody else, we're all enlightened. We all have this nature within ourselves. It's just a matter of being able to let go of the things that keep us from recognizing that.
Sure.
And living that life. We're all closer to it than you can imagine that we are.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And those become the tears of joy that we have when we realize that. It was here the whole time. So what's the method to get to realize that?
Well, that's what he discussed in the previous chapters. He talked about the path of practice. Now he's talking about the conduct. So,
Right. And next comes the commitments.
okay.
And then comes the result. And then comes the impartiality. And then comes the white panacea.
The white panacea, yeah.
And then the prayer.
Okay, so we're getting close to the end then, I guess. Closer to the end. Oh, the result is a long section. Okay.
August 18th, I was reading, and this one really stuck out on the glimpse after glimpse. It's a quote from Gyaltsha Rinpoche. And it says, planning for the future is like going fishing in a dry gulch. Nothing ever works out as you wanted. So give up all your schemes and ambitions. If you have got to think about something, make it the uncertainty of the hour of your death. That really punched up. That just knocked me upside the head like a frying pan, you know. Really. That really put things in perspective, you
Thomas,
know. Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have read that before I hired my business coach.
Yeah.
So your business coach had you fishing in a dry gulch. Okay.
Hey, you're making all those plans and goals and
Yeah. Yeah. I really look forward to these Wednesday evenings when we get together. It really humbles me. It really does. It brings perspective back into the confusion, the light. Thank
We
you so
can
much.
read,
And
We
an
can-
interesting thing, I'm sorry, somebody was saying, going to say
I
something.
was just saying, we can read through this stuff on our own, but when we read through it together, taking time to think about it, we get so much more.
Yeah, 6 feet deeper.
yeah, for sure.
Of course. Yeah, there's 6 Buddhas here that given their perceptions.
As Tom was just reading this last passage and everything, I was thinking to myself, wow, we probably all would love to be monastics, wearing robes, but would we want to be part of that organization? Because that organization isn't as pure as we might like it to be. It's got its problems. However, we'd still like to be wearing the robes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether we're part of that organization or not. It's the purity that we want to have within ourselves, that those robes might help us to become the embodiment of. It becomes a symbol to ourselves of who it is that, who is our hero? What is our emulation? Who is our exemplar? So how many years do we have left,
In this life?
in this
Not
life? Yeah.
enough.
So what,
Not enough.
do we say, okay, if you got 10 years left or 20 years left or 5 years left, do you want to, really becoming, the embodiment of this? Or do we just say, okay, that's another life. I'll just enjoy the best I can with what I've got with this life, and whatever architecture I've created for myself, I'll live out. Or do we look at today as the first day of the rest of our lives and say, well, I'm going to make changes?
Yeah, well, make the best of every day, because at least when you get to my age, you don't have too many of them left. So make every day your best day.
Ernie, you're implying you're old. I think of you as being about my age. Are you in your
I
sixties?
am 67 years old, soon to be 68 in November. Lance is older than me, but Lance is still in good shape too. So I hope we both have a lot of years left, but you never know how many. So
I think Thomas and Adrian are the babies in the group.
Adrian is definitely the baby of the group.
We'll call him the young man.
The vigorous young man of the
The young
group.
yogi, the young yogi. How's that? We'll give
Yeah,
him.
but
There you go.
And is that our goal? To say, are we a beginner? Are we a practitioner? Are we a yogi? Are we a bodhisattva? Are we a Buddha? At different times we may be, we're all of those things. It all depends on certain things because we live in this conditioned world and so on. We're still human beings. But we have all these ingredients within ourselves. So the question then becomes, who do we want to be?
It's depending on what type of the day it is, the different colored glasses we have on, right? Yeah.
All right, brothers.
It was a great class tonight. Thanks.
thank you all again. It's wonderful
Yep.
to be meeting with you every other Wednesday or so. So
All right, very good. So next time is
2 weeks from tonight,
2 weeks from
it's the
tonight.
14th?
14th of September.
14th of September.
No, it would be midway through September almost.
Wow.
14th of September. And whose turn is it next week? Next time
Next time.
is Michael's turn. Okay.
Michael's
So
turn.
we'll have to confirm with him that he's on board. Did he say he wasn't going to be here tonight last time? I don't remember.
He didn't say either way.
All right. Well,
Mhm.
we'll assume that he's going to be there. If he's not, then it would be Pete.
Okay.
Okay, I'll read it just in case.
Okay.
Okay.
The next section is not a very long section. The virtues collected in the three
Collected in
times
three times by
by myself and all
and
beings,
all beings
samsara and
in samsara and
nirvana,
nirvana,
and by the
and the
innate root of
innate root
virtue,
virtue,
may I and all
and
sentient
all
beings
sentient beings
quickly attain
quickly realizing
unsurpassed, perfect, complete,
perfect,
and
complete,
precious
precious
enlightenment.
enlightenment.
May the teachings
The
of the
teachings of the
great
great
Trungpa
Trungpa
Ratnasri,
Ratnasri,
who is
who is
omniscient,
omniscient,
Lord of the
Lord of the
Dharma,
Dharma,
master of
master of
interdependence,
interdependence,
continue and
continue and
increase
increase
through
through study,
study, practice,
practice,
contemplation,
contemplation,
and
and
meditation
meditation
until the end
until
of
the end of
samsara.
samsara.
Om,
Mm.
ah,
Ah,
om,
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 ah,
Ah,
om,
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 ah,
Ah,
om.
Om.
May my body,
My body,
speech,
speech,
and mind
and mind
become
become
inseparable
inseparable
with the
from
body,
the body,
speech,
speech,
and mind
and mind
of all the
of
enlightened
all the
ones
enlightened
for the
ones,
benefit of
that
all
of
sentient
all
beings.
sentient beings.
Thank you, guys.
Thomas.
All right,
All right.
namaste.
Namaste. So we recorded this and I'll put it on our WhatsApp so Michael can see it and if anybody wants to see it again.
Okay, great.
It was a really good discussion. Good section.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a
All
good
right.
Night. Good night.
good night.
Can't hear you, Thomas. It's about to end anyway. Good to see you, Adrian.
Okay.
Good to see you guys. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Jerry, bye-bye.
Good night, all.